Jalen, who I realized that you reacted like that because I had never hugged you. And that was the hardest thing I had ever had to come to grips with.
When your whole life is all about your kid, it can be very hard to release them into adulthood. That's what happened to Grace. Her son Jalen said he grew in maturity about 5 years when she moved to St. Louis for just 1 year. It was very hard for everybody, especially Grace. You get to eavesdrop on a conversation about it. We've talked about the fact that Jalen he's just an instrumental part of your life. I imagine that you being gone for St. Louis not only changed him, but it changed you.
So, yeah, I can talk about, and Terrence, you know this. You were the first person to help me realize moving to St. Louis is kind of an assignment. I never liked it. I never felt good about it. But I've always understood that the main reason I didn't want it was because of the separation I knew I was going to have with my child, who I've never been separated from. Jalen has never been separated from me for more than a week. And to know that I have to separate from him for I don't know how long was extremely difficult for me. Jalen, you talk about depression. I don't remember any happy days in St. Louis. I remember having fun, but it wasn't like I'm happy here. I never felt comfortable because I was always away from you. And I just know that it was supposed to be so you could do the growing up. And everything that you were saying, like I said earlier, it is solidifying that was the reason, because none of the things that you went through would have taken place. That means the growth wouldn't have either. And that gives me comfort, and I'm happy that I'm back, but I'm also happy that I was obedient and did what I knew I was supposed to do for the sake of you growing in the man you are today now.
So if we can just kind of keep it 100, she was there and she was craving Omaha. And so I would give her these illustrations and I would be like, well, what if Jalen wasn't there? Would you still be craving Omaha? So we would kind of go deep into that. What's the
Yeah,
reason that your heart is craving Omaha? We had discussions.
yeah. And it would always, I wonder, I'm not really sure that I came to the conclusion anytime soon after going to St. Louis that the reason it was so hard for me is because I was missing you. I felt like on the surface, I was like, okay, Jalen is going to school and he'll come home to visit. For a minute, I was like, Jalen is going to come move with me. In fact, I was hoping that things got difficult enough for you to make the decision to say, I'm just going to move to St. Louis. And you never even came close to that. And I was like, oh, it didn't work.
There actually were a few times where I was blaming myself because I was like, maybe I should have just moved there. Because my main objective was staying with my friends because I didn't want those relationships to go away. I kind of felt embarrassed to tell you that at the time.
I knew that though. I knew that.
I know you knew, because why else would I want to stay here? But I was embarrassed to tell you the only reason I want to stay here is for my friends.
Well, can I ask why that embarrassed you?
I felt like you wouldn't have taken it seriously.
You know, we have more in common than you know as it relates to the way we develop and the importance we put on relationships. I was very aware that your relationships with your friends was your life, as it should have been. I don't feel like that was bad. I feel like at your age, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, you
I'm happy that you didn't have anything else going on that would have taken precedence over that.
You gotta think of it from a night, like from my perspective, because I'm living with you the whole time. You are the only family here besides my friends. I would consider them my family. I was more embarrassed because I felt like you wouldn't have seen it as important. I understand now that's not the case, but you said the only way I could stay here is if I go to school. And so I was like, I can't tell her that I only want to stay because of my friends. That's just how my brain worked at the time. And I guess there are plenty of reasons for that, for why I was cautious to tell you or embarrassed to tell you. But the bottom line is that that was the case. I was considering moving to St. Louis. There were several times where I was like, if I moved to St. Louis and grind for like 2 months, I could just come back and everything would be all good. Obviously, I never got to that point. I was also scared because I know no one. I don't even really know my family in St. Louis. That was one of the things that scared me. It also seemed kind of spontaneous. I'm sure it's something that you thought about for a while.
No, it was pretty spontaneous.
Oh, well,
Extremely spontaneous. Yeah.
well,
it actually happened in a matter of a week or so.
There's no possible way I would have been able to process that.
Yeah.
But I did. It took a year. A little bit of
Terrence,
time.
feel free to remind me of some conversations if you were thinking of
I remember.
something.
I'm sitting here thinking about. I'm the most confidential person, so
permission.
Okay. Thank you for permission, because no, I remember very specifically being in St. Louis, and she was in tears, saying, "I'm supposed to move here. I don't know why, but I know I'm supposed to move to St. Louis." It was emotional for her because part of her didn't want to, or she did not want to. Did you want to move to St. Louis?
No, ever.
She
Not
didn't want to
ever.
go.
Not ever.
She didn't want to go. She knew for a fact she was supposed to.
I thought you did want to go. Because from my understanding, you were moving to be closer with your family. Or to be closer to your childhood.
I'm glad she released me to talk a little bit because what I've been trying to draw out of her, and I guess maybe I can articulate it a little bit, is you are and I almost feel like I'm doing the Star Trek saying where Spock talks to Kirk, you always and will be my friend. You are and always have been her life source, everything. And it was very difficult for her to let go of being mommy of this is my very life. I want the best for him. So you talk about how you grew up in 5 years in a matter of 1 year. It was traumatic for her. And
yeah,
but the traumatic part was not even necessarily knowing why she was in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for helping me remember. That does bring up another thing. I've never told you this, but just like Terrence said, after you were born, there was no more Jamisa's life. Literally every single thing I've done was to show you, to encourage you, to provide a different life for you, to make sure that your life was nothing like mine. You have actually brought up stuff where I didn't succeed on some ends, and I was like, oh my gosh. But you also gave me comfort in knowing that I improved and there were changes that I made. I'm telling you, Jalen, like it was constant. I'm like I want to talk about this. Do you remember when we were living with Miss Millie and she hugged you and you kind of had like a breakdown? You remember what I'm talking about? I think you were like 7, 8, maybe 6 or 7. Well, she hugged you and she was holding you. I know you have like issues with enclosed spaces, but it was so weird for both of us that when she held you, you started like freaking out. You were really scared and freaking out. And we talked about that for hours after that happened. Like I took you downstairs, put you to sleep, and I went back upstairs and I was talking to Miss Millie and she was like, has anything happened to him? We were trying to figure out why your response was that drastic to a hug. And Jalen, I realized that you reacted like that because I had never hugged you. And that was the hardest thing I had ever had to come to grips with. Like I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even thought about how that affected you. And I know that me hugging people was never, that wasn't something that was comfortable. But from that day forward, I was like, I'm going to make myself do it. And I started doing it. And I started doing it to the point where you don't even remember not being hugged.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah. That's how engulfed I was with making sure you had a different life. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I didn't do everything perfectly, but there were things I was just gung ho on. I was not playing around with. When I saw you react like that, it was like, there is no reason for him to be uncomfortable with being embraced. And I remember never being embraced. I remembered never hearing I love you from the people that I lived with until we were adults. I remembered that stuff. And I'm like, oh, look, one more thing I have to change immediately. And that's exactly what I did.
I don't remember that at all.
Wow.
So imagine how your child becomes your very life source, your everything. And to hit a point in your life where you have to consider living differently, you have to consider the fact that that person is hitting adulthood and has to learn how to make decisions on their own. And, there's always that temptation to do everything for them because you want the very best for them. That's traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this transition actually started probably the day you graduated high school. I didn't know that. So, because we talked a lot about how things were really different and drastically different for you after you graduated high school. And I've kind of, hinted to that it was really different for me as well. But it was extremely hard and different for me because I wasn't the parent of a high schooler or a school age child anymore. Even if you were like always saying that I'm going to go to college after high school, you change from a kid in high school to a young adult immediately after you graduate. And that's when the change and the transition started happening for me. It was almost like a midlife crisis, I guess. I don't know if that's what you would call it, but it was a transition that I didn't feel like I prepared for. And I didn't even know it was going to hit me like it did. In fact, I didn't even know that it was a transition until maybe a year or so later. But that's exactly what it was. I kind of used to beat myself up a little bit like, why didn't you get prepared for this? Why didn't you know that this was going to be a big thing? But I didn't. And maybe there were other reasons why it happened the way it did, but it was a huge transition for me. Really, really big.
Jalen, do you feel like right now, I don't know how honest you are ready to be as I take a sip, but do you feel like mom has trouble treating you like an adult right now?
No, not really.
Oh, good.
I feel like we've always had a relationship where I felt comfortable talking to you about anything. The transition was more so when you had moved back here because I felt like I'd learned so much. I matured a lot. I don't think it took you very long to adjust to who I am
Yeah, I
now.
feel like I catch on fast.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know what Terrence is probably referring to. I don't know for sure, but I like the mama bear in me. She's not going anywhere, so there's that.
Okay.
But I do know there are times where the mama bear in me wants to take over the conversation. If we get too far into this discussion, we can cut it out. But the conversation about the baby shower and seeing another adult who is kind of like mother figure treat you in a way that I wouldn't was like, I was ready to fight. And you again were able to say, Mom, calm down. The first thing, I didn't tell you this, Terrence, but the first thing Jalen sent me was a meme. And he said, "This is you right now." It was Homer Simpson with the angel and the devil. And
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, shoot. But I know that I can't expect people to have the same insight, knowledge, relationship. I know that I can't expect people to have that, but it is difficult to watch. But
So,
I really take comfort in knowing that you are mature enough to handle it and you jumped right on it. I completely understand how stressful this is, planning a baby shower, doing things differently than the traditional way it's done. And that could be hard for some people.
so Jalen, I told her she was doing too much. And
He
you can
did.
say I was wrong. I told her she was doing too much. I told her, Jalen told you, I got this. He told you, I got this. And if you want to ask the questions that bring about the information that you have, I feel as if you have the strength within you to handle the situation. And I felt like you didn't need the additional stress of mom in it. In fact, I suggested to her, you need to mute it.
I, okay, a couple things. One of the biggest transitions that I had to consciously work towards is feeling like I'm able to stand up to adults. Naturally, as a kid, that's not your first instinct. When an adult tells you to do something, even if they're rude about it, you do it. Even if, like, a lot of times you don't even know they're being rude because you're a kid. But one of the things I had to consciously do was be like, I'm an adult now. I'm going to talk to you how I want you to talk to me. And if you don't give me that same type of respect, then I don't feel like I should respect you in that way. Now, I will say there are certain circumstances where that doesn't apply, and that's kind of just life. With that situation in particular, I didn't want any more added stress. I was afraid that your judgment of people can seep out into your actions sometimes because you're human. Not like just
That was a mouthful. That was good. You were
not,
spoken like
Hush,
a true
Terrence,
adult.
hush.
not just you though. Like it's everybody. If you have a particular view of somebody, if you see somebody a certain way, then that's how you're going to treat them. I did not want that. I had to learn that not everybody is like you. I compared a lot of my friends' parents. I compared a lot of my past relationships, their parenting styles. I compared it to you, and I'd be like, no, what they're doing is wrong. Sometimes I'd step out of line, and I have to learn to back off. But
Me too, Jalen.
yeah, that's what I was saying is completely understand. A lot of parents aren't like my mom, which kind of sucks, but it's just how it is.
So, what do you appreciate about your mom?
You are very accepting. I did a lot of stuff to get attention. Some things you kind of cut out because it was necessary, and other things you'd let me express myself a lot. And I really appreciate that, especially seeing how some of my friends' parents aren't that way. They're not as accepting as you are. Like with the piercings and stuff, how I dress can be seen as juvenile, but I appreciate that you were very supportive of that. I also appreciate being able to see you in action, not even just when you're mothering, but a lot like your work ethic. Like you get stuff done when you need to get it done. Growing up, that's something I've admired a lot, especially recently.
I know we gotta go, but I just love you guys' relationship.
This was awesome. You don't. Again, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm proud to.
I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for sharing.